Hey everyone, today I'm going to recommend a perk to use on every killer. For this I want to try and suggest slightly more obscure ones for certain killers because of course there's obvious choices that work on all killers like Ruin, Barbecue, Undying, there's plenty of them. For the sake of being interesting I'm going to try and recommend a different perk for all 23 of them. So starting off with Trapper we have Fire Up, a perk that incrementally improves your vault speed, pickup speed, and break speed by 4% for every generator that is completed. The thing I love about this perk and the specific benefit it provides Trapper with is that Trapper is not an early game killer. This perk works with you immediately by essentially buffing you for the survivor's successes, giving you space to set up traps and feel less worried about the weaker state that will follow. With Fire Up you just get that little extra edge in chases from the extra vault speed, hooking speed, from the pickup speed bonus, and finally the break speed, making pallets less of a problem. For Wraith we have Rancor. This pick comes down to the way Rancor functions. Rancor is a perk that will reveal survivor locations for every generator that is completed for 3 seconds, with the consequence being the Obsession will see your aura for 3 seconds also when a generator pops, but only the Obsession. The benefit of this on Wraith is that much of the time when a gen pops you will be cloaked, and when cloaked, aura reading perks won't work on you. Therefore you will gain information and the survivors will gain nothing. Further, the Obsession will not know you have Rancor. This is perfect as Rancor's final ability is one that allows you to insta-down the Obsession and further mori them once all generators are completed. For Hillbilly I'm recommending Nemesis. To me some of the best moments with Hillbilly can be obtained when you combine his very loud chainsaw with stealth perks to mask your terror radius, creating confusing scenarios for the survivors. Nemesis will apply the Oblivious status for 60 seconds to any new Obsession. New Obsessions will be created whenever you get stunned by a pallet, locker, or you get de-essed or someone flashlight blinds you. This is great due to the high number of pallets that will be dropped on your face due to the survivors being scared of your chainsaw. You'll get the nice bonus of having lots of opportunities to use stealth on a largely noisy killer. Okay, for Nurse I'm saying make your choice. This one is a little more straightforward as a pick because I'm not all too versed with Nurse, but generally the idea is that this perk is just great for Nurse due to how quickly you can activate it. This perk will expose or make a one hit down to the survivor who saves another from the hook, and if you're beyond 32 meters. This of course is great for Nurse because you can make that ground almost instantly and do the same back to the hook once the unhook happens. For Huntress we have I'm All Ears. This is one I like because it allows you to effectively pre-fire different areas within loops, which are often the most restricted areas for a Huntress as winding up your hatchet can take a while. This perk simply allows you to preempt things on loops and make the wind up less punishing around corners and through windows. For Myers we have Monitor and Abuse. This perk is nice especially for when you're in your tier 2, which is most of the time. This perk reduces your terror radius when out of a chase by 16 meters and also boosts your field of view by 10 degrees. This effectively makes his tier 2 back to being undetectable, and because of increased FOV you can stalk even easier to reach your tier 3 much quicker. Having that extra level of stealth and vision is so useful. For Hag we have Franklin's Demise. This perk is horrible and so mean on Hag and I feel bad for recommending it, but here it is. This perk will make survivors drop their items whenever you hit them with a basic attack. The reason this perk is so brutal on Hag is that you can insta-teleport to people and hit their stuff from their hands. It works well too because you can trap the items and survivors who may want to come back for them will have to go through you first. For Doctor we have Gearhead. This is admittedly a weird pick and a perk that is often considered to be the biggest waste of space on your perk list. However, due to Doctor's reliance on his basic attack and ease of getting it due to his shock power, this perk becomes quite valuable. This perk simply put reveals survivors working on generators after they hit a good skill check on that generator for a total of 30 seconds, with the prerequisite being 2 basic attack hits. Again, this is not a great perk, but for someone like Doctor, I find it very reliable, often more so than other information perks, which is honestly saying a lot because this really isn't a conventionally good perk. For Bubba we have Bamboozle. This is a fairly straightforward one. This perk will block windows that you vault, meaning they can't be vaulted by survivors. It'll do this for 16 seconds, forcing survivors to leave a loop or become blocked inside of it, and fall to the sweep of your chainsaw. You also get a nice little passive buff, vaulting 15% faster, which is more useful than it sounds. For Freddy we have Hex Haunted Ground. Freddy right now doesn't really need any perks to be good, but for some easy downs you can run Haunted Ground, a perk that places 2 hex totems within the trial, and when either are broken, all survivors become exposed for 60 seconds. Great for Freddy because he's like the peak performing M1 killer of Dead by Daylight. For Pig we have Hex the Third Seal. This perk will apply the blindness effect when you hit any survivor with a basic attack. This is great on Pig because when applied it will block the auras of jigsaw boxes, and as a result make it harder for survivors to get their traps off. Generally good too for confusing the survivor's side. Clown we have Trail of Torment. This pick comes down to the fact that Undetectable is really nice to have on Clown just to get a bit of a head start on some chases. This works well also as it allows you to keep notice of progress on gens by marking them after you kick them, as they'll light up with a yellow aura. This perk basically makes you undetectable after kicking a generator. This lasts forever unless you attack or someone works on the generator, so you get some nice sneaky approaches, or you get some information on survivors working on the generator which you kicked earlier. Okay, so for Spirit. Now the obvious ones for Spirit would be Strider, but that's boring, so we're going with Dark Devotion. This perk is pretty strange, but effectively it applies your terror radius as the killer onto the obsession whenever you hit them. So basically, once you hit the obsession with this, they'll carry around your terror radius and you'll go silent. I like this on Spirit simply for the fact that it makes countering her even more confusing. Sounds harsh, I know, but it's pretty effective. For Legion, I'm saying Bloodhound. To me, Bloodhound is one of the most underrated perks in the game. It helps out so much for tracking survivors through visuals, so this is great if you struggle with following scratch marks. This perk effectively makes pools of blood really bright and last longer and just easier to track, and because it's on Legion, the killer who is constantly making everyone injured, it works out really well for extra tracking potential. For Plague, we have Knockout. This perk makes downed survivor auras unseen by fellow survivors beyond 32 meters for 15 seconds, and makes downed survivors crawl 50% slower for this amount of time also. I like this because it adds another additional slowdown for when survivors are adamant against cleansing. It gives you a little more space to retain pressure whilst not having your power up. The only downside to this being that this effect won't apply when you use your power, but that's not too bad though, as when your power's up, you're in the stronger position anyway. This is more for when you don't have it up. For Ghostface we have Discordance. This is a pretty straightforward one. This perk lights up a generator when 2 or more survivors are working on it in a 128 meter range, and will remain lit up for 4 more seconds after the survivors stop working on it. This perk is amazing for Ghosty as you get up-to-date information of where multiple survivors are on generators, so less aware and somewhat focused on other things, allowing you to get some really easy stalks and often grabs. It's another perk for just honing down actions and reducing time lost. For Demogorgon we have Save the Best for Last. This perk is pretty conventional for demo, and it's the best usage of Save the Best for Last you can get, I feel. For every basic attack you land on anyone aside the obsession, you'll get a 5% reduction in cooldown after successfully landing an attack. So when you're wiping blood from your weapon, it's faster basically, allowing you to increase chase potential and maintain pressure, but also because your shred ability acts very similarly to your basic attack, except just super extended and a little wider, and when you attack with this, you won't lose stacks when attacking the obsession. This means once you've hit 8 stacks, or the maximum cooldown of 40%, you can use your shred attack to attack the obsession and therefore stop the loss of stacks, allowing a constant quicker cooldown. For Oni we have Blood Echo. This is straightforward for Oni, as ideally for him you want to keep everyone injured, so a great way to do this is to weaken the survivors whilst they are injured and incentivize them to heal. This does that by applying the Exhausted and Hemorrhage effects. Hemorrhage will make them drop more blood, and Exhausted will stop any exhaustion perks like Sprint Burst or more likely Dead Hard. This allows you to collect blood more easily as the survivors will be weakened and will generally find it harder to heal, staying injured and providing you with more blood. For Deathslinger we have Starstruck. Starstruck is a perk that will apply the exposed effect for 30 seconds onto any survivor within your terror radius after picking another survivor up. Great for Slinger, as even if the survivor runs after becoming exposed, you can have a better chance of using that exposed, as you can shoot and pull them to you rather than having to chase them down. Just make sure to reload your spear gun prior to picking up and then hooking. For Executioner we have a Nurse's Calling. This perk lets you see survivor auras in a 24 meter range whenever they're healing. This perk is perfect for utilizing your ranged attack, as you can catch survivors off guard easily, often getting multiple hits as survivors will group heal. Wall hacks and an ability that shoots through walls is a great combo basically. For Blight we have Zanshin Tactics. This is an odd one, but basically because Blight is so reliant on how you play different structures, this perk, which lights up windows, pallets and breakable walls as auras within 32 meters, is great for figuring out structures and the tools available to survivors and how you can counter accordingly. Learning structures and angles is integral for Blight, and knowing window placements and having them lit up can help a ton with learning these. For twins we have Deerstalker. I recommend Deerstalker as I want this to encourage a less campy build, although this does kind of encourage a higher amount of slugging, but it's somewhat unavoidable with the twins as they're two separate characters. This perk will show you the auras of down survivors within a 36 meter range. This is great for those situations where you send Victor out, you down someone and then he gets kicked and Charlotte is far away. This perk basically just negates that. It sounds very niche in application, but it honestly really comes in handy and is a nice quality of life improvement for the twins. Finally, for Trickster we have Blood Warden. This one sounds harsh, but the reason for it is that Trickster really isn't too great at the moment, and this perk helps to extend the game longer than it usually would. When the exit gates are open, if you hook a survivor, it will block off the exits for 60 seconds. Further, you can see survivor auras at exit gates. This perk is perfect for when you're seconds away from the entity displeased, the survivors start pitting you, and then out of nowhere you lock the doors as they try to leave. It's a good feeling. Alright, well that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed. Be sure to drop your own favorite perks on each killer down below. Thanks, and goodbye. An additional thank you to LHPL3, as well as my other members for supporting the channel.